Very interesting. To prove that there's an extra body in our solar system that's affecting the whole solar system, tilting the Earth, creating earthquakes, volcanism, creating radiation, hurting the planet, you should be able to see changes in the moon. You can't change one object in the solar system without changing all the objects in the solar system. So, the last full moon of 2020, known as the cold moon or the wolf moon, but NASA wants you to also remember it's the long night moon. Now, NASA preemptively warned us about the fact that we might see a full moon on different nights, and that certain full moon calendars will have the moon on the wrong day. They won't agree. We've pointed this out a dozen times, and NASA's excuse kind of gets muddled. But to clarify the main excuse, the reason they don't agree on when the full moon is because that the actual total illumination happened close to midnight, so that one part of the world would see a full moon on one day, and then the other part of the world would see a full moon on the other day, or the previous day, or the next day, depending on what time zone you're in. And that for calendars will disagree. One will have the full moon on the 29th, which it was, and then again on the 30th. And the moon was a little bit lower in the sky on the 30th. So that makes me think the full moon was on the 29th. But people are reporting seeing a full moon for 3 and even 4 nights. And the moon calendar kind of gave you a hint. A full moon on the 29th. Some had it on the 30th. People were filming a full moon on the 28th. And some people even thought the 27th was a full moon. But that calendar gave you a hint of being in the same constellation 3 nights in a row. That does happen in the very big constellations when the moon hits it just at the right time, catches the front edge of the constellation, leaving, catches the back edge, and you can maybe fit the moon into an entire constellation for 3 nights in a row, especially the big constellations, but it's very rare. So when you see the moon in Cancer 3 nights in a row, you're thinking, well, 12 degrees every night is supposed to move. So how can the moon move 36 degrees and still have a full moon on all 3 nights? And so we've pointed out the first phase change in the moon July 2nd, 2015. We were the only channel to report on it. Mainstream didn't report on it. Alternative media didn't report on it. But we showed you where people were taking pictures of the moon June 30th. They were saying, oh, here, look at the full moon, and it's right next to Venus, and blah, 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 right? We showed you 2 or 3 calendars that were claiming a full moon on June 30th. Then we showed you a waning gibbous moon on July 1st. And a slightly waning gibbous moon. Very slightly shaved off at the 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock position. Then, on July 2nd, a huge, massive supermoon, full moon. It looked like the moon went from a waning gibbous back to a full moon again. Crazy occurrence. Well, here we are again, trying to figure out when the real full moon is actually there. So preemptively, NASA tried to explain this away because it doesn't look good when people like me point out that people can't even agree anymore when the full moon is. And they come up with stuff that sounds good, but when you dig into it, you're like, you kind of, a little question mark pops up over your head. So the long night moon gets used in the explanation, even though it has nothing to do with the moon phase 3 nights in a row. It's a single night, but it's the longest phase of the moon. It's above the Earth and visible longer than any other time during the year, or at least during this 6 month period. Excuse me. And what happens is the sun is further south, directly opposite the sun is the moon. The moon's furthest north, and therefore it's very high in the sky. And when it passes over and sets on the other horizon, it's in the air longer. On the 29th, it was 15 plus hours, and the night after that was 14. So, but yet on the 30th, even though it was only visible 14 plus hours, it was still a full moon. And I mean, very, very slight change to it. So basically, what you're seeing and was that for years we were reporting on changes in the orientation of the phase. And the gibbous moon looked more symmetrical, looked more like a potato chip, things like that. And prolonged crescent, an early crescent that you normally don't see, things like that. Not a total phase change until the 2015. One of the other things that helped with that phase change was how close the moon was. It was one of the closest supermoons we've had since we've been walking upon this earth. So when the moon gets closer, with any object, especially a sphere, when it gets closer to you, you get to see things on that sphere that you normally couldn't see. Everybody's eyesight improves the closer you get to whatever it is you're looking at. The other thing is the increased brightness of the sun. When you have a supermoon and an increased brightness of the sun, then you will see parts of the moon you never used to see before. So we really didn't have 3 full moons. It sure looked like it though. And some people say 4 nights. And I understand that. Now, there's one other aspect to the prolonged phase that nobody's going to tell you about. And that's the fact that we've showed you articles where via lunar measurements with lasers, they've determined the moon was more elliptical. And they called it a change. So how does something that's set in concrete, like phases of the moon, where you're supposed to be able to predict eclipses 30, 40 years out, what changed and that would make the moon more elliptical? And so think about a ball passing in front of your window. If it's passing in front of your window from right to left, completely across the window, it will leave your field of vision at a very specific time. Take the same ball, and instead of going just straight across your window, some of that lateral motion across the window frame is converted into motion that's slightly away from you. So in other words, the moon is coming across your window frame, but at the same time also moving away from you. And then if it hits its pinnacle or aphelion, its furthest point in a elliptical orbit, then it starts to come back towards you again. Okay. And so technically in physics, when something changes motion like that, it's actually stands still for a moment period of time. The other thing is that now that some of that lateral motion is converted to motion away from you and then coming back towards you, that item, that sphere, that ball stays in your field of vision longer. So when you have a moon that's full and it's reached its aphelion and now it's coming back towards Earth, you're not seeing it really traverse across the sky like it used to. When you talk about ellipticality, there's other things that also affect the phase of the moon. One of those is the further away from the Earth it gets, the slower it travels. And the closer it gets to Earth, the faster it travels. So that's why sometimes we see the moon rush through a phase. And there was a couple of months where me and a couple other people swore up and down the moon never reached 100%. It went from 97, 98, 99, and never reached. It was like on 99% 2 nights in a row. And then 98. So in 4 nights, it went from 98, 99, 99, 98. And so it never reached 100. That was an accelerated phase. That was during a supermoon. So the fact that the moon becomes fully illuminated near midnight does not change what you should see from the same point, like from your front porch, 3 nights in a row. It pertains to what people on the other side of the world sees, and how calendars can disagree. They'll try to throw in the long night moon to explain away the extra full moons, but that doesn't pertain to the moon moving 12 degrees across the sky every single night, and it does not pertain to what you see standing in one place. So it applies to one night too. The highest point, the longest traverse. It's just a long night. The moon's up longer. It doesn't mean that the phase changes. So putting all of that in an explanation preemptively to warn you, you're going to see a full moon. It's going to seem like you're seeing a moon on 3 nights in a row, a full moon. And so they preemptively keep people like me from scooping, hey, and looking like, we're really doing something. But the explanations, you never got the correct explanation that explains what you see with your own 2 eyes and what other people were seeing with their own 2 eyes.